Hey everyone, welcome to the spoiler review, or spoiler screenwriter's take on El Camino. So now we're going to get into it. So obviously, if you haven't seen it, you're watching the wrong one. This is going to get into what happened from a screenwriter's perspective. So, follows the three-act structure fairly closely. I think for the first two acts, it's very much a Breaking Bad episode. And then the last act kind of is a send-off into, hey, this is stuff you probably only know if you've watched the series. It's probably like a what do you call it? An homage or a finale, I liked it a lot, but then again, I love Breaking Bad. I would not rate this as the best episode, but I would definitely rate it as a good episode. The first act, of course, you got Jesse. It just starts right after the show, which is great. I love that. I love that it picks up right after. And we see Jesse escape and go back to the boys, Badger and Skinny Pete, who I love. I would have loved to have seen more of them, throughout the series, a little ensemble thing, the three of them doing stuff, but they went in this direction, which, it makes sense. The great thing about Breaking Bad is it always makes sense. There's always a logic to it. Characters are played at the height of their intelligence. Now, in my non-spoiler review, I mentioned two moments where the timing was used to push the story ahead. That was in the scene where Jesse is at Skinny Pete and Badger's house, and he's got the El Camino. He's got to get rid of it. He calls a guy who, was he in the series? He probably was towards the end. I didn't remember him, but he shows up, and he's going to take the El Camino and destroy it, and he's scanning it for LoJack, and then while he's scanning it, the LoJack goes off. So that was quite a coincidence. But, I could forgive it because I understand it's moving the story ahead. It's a way to force Jesse to get the hell out of there and have the cops continually chase him, throughout this. That's the danger. He's going to be caught by the cops. The other moment is, of course, when he's in Todd's apartment tearing it to pieces, and he's literally spent all night tearing apart the walls looking for his money, and then finally finds it. Only at that moment the two guys show up, and and that really that drives the rest of the story, right? He doesn't have enough money to disappear. He's short $1,800 and he still has to get it. It was driving me crazy, the actor who played Neil, who he was. I knew I'd recognized him. I couldn't place him. And then finally I looked it up on the IMDb. He's Jimmy from a TV series called The Mick with Caitlin Olsen, if you haven't seen it. Anyway, and he played like a scumbag on that too. So that was kind of cool to see Jimmy in something. He was good. He definitely is an actor who, he had a presence on the screen. When he was standing there in the flashback where he installs the metal cable that holds Jesse, you could see like his presence against the guys who played Todd and Uncle Jack. He was really there. So good for you, Jimmy. His name's not really Jimmy. I forget the actor's name. But a lot of this, a lot of the flashbacks weren't particularly enlightening. I did enjoy the stuff with Todd. That was fun. And the scene with Jesse breaking down where he could have escaped, but he's just so broken at that point. That was interesting too. I guess that sort of saying that if White hadn't saved him, he probably would, died there. Which I guess makes sense with the character. I mean, Jesse's kind of not a strong character, and this is sort of a a movie where we see him finally, you know, come into his own. And it makes sense too, and huge spoiler here, huge, because Walter White is dead, at least according to the radio. Now, I'll contend that they could still bring Walter White back. It could be that they save Walter and then decide to fake his death in order to, in order that he testify against bigger cartel guys. I don't think there's anybody left to testify against, quite frankly. Gus killed a bunch of cartel guys, and then he sort of becomes the cartel, and then White kills him. I mean, and they were looking for Walter for so long. That would be a tough thing to sell. The interesting thing about Breaking Bad is that almost all the criminal guys died, and that left the El Camino movie with almost no one left. Everybody's dead. I mean, the only guy who's definitely alive is Saul, right? And they really couldn't bring him back. So, or I guess they could have, but then that would give away probably what will be the ending to the Better Call Saul series, which I have to catch up on. That's pretty good. Better Call Saul is pretty good. But, it was, and I said this in the other video, you're really going to miss out if you haven't watched Breaking Bad, because you have to know who he's talking to at the end there in the car, the love of his life, who White killed. And, you gotta be like, oh yeah, that's a cool scene. And I also really enjoyed Bryan Cranston was gonna be in it. You knew he was gonna be in it. The only question was it gonna be a flashback, or was it gonna be like, Jesse, I'm still alive, let's go. So, that was a fun scene too. I enjoyed that. And the show, and I said this in the other one too, the show is so strong in terms of the eras of Breaking Bad. When you start that scene with the old Jesse saying bitch all the time, I mean, you know exactly when it takes place, right? You see the Winnebago, you see Walter, he's still coughing. You know instantly that that's like first season Jesse and Walter, or maybe second, but probably first season. And it's just such a strong show in terms of the various eras of Jesse and Walter. I don't know who was left. I mean, it's interesting. Like, if you were an actor on Breaking Bad, eventually you get pulled back in one of these other shows. I don't think the guy who played Jimmy was in. I don't think they used him for Breaking Bad. Like, it makes me want to go back and check. I don't think there was a scene where they set up the chain thing for Jesse. I think it was just there, but I don't remember. It's been a while since I saw those episodes. I don't remember every single moment. But El Camino has a decent payoff. It's not the greatest payoff, but it's one you want to see. You feel like, oh, this guy's been through hell, and it's like, that part of it I think is pretty satisfying if you're a fan of the series. For someone who just comes in on it, it might be like, oh, okay. That wouldn't be that great. You really have to, I think, watch the series to understand just how much craziness Jesse has been through, and that, all the major transformations with him have probably already been done at this point. This was the final one. Like, Jesse finally gets out on his own. Jesse can finally, do what Walter and Saul did, and go off on their own and finally retire. Although I don't think he had any money left by the time he paid the guy to make him disappear, but I guess that's better than ending up in jail, right? So that's interesting. I like the ending. I would like this to be probably the final topper to this. I don't know if bringing Walter back in another series would be good because, even if they did a movie, they'd have to bring back Jesse, and that would ruin this. I wouldn't want to see the ending of this ruined. I think Jesse needs to be out, His character arc is done. Like, he is done. There's no way he should be pulled back into the world of making meth and criminality if they, and I think it's probably a mistake to do, oh, Walter survived, let's do another Breaking Bad. And, the only thing I would want to see if they did do a sequel to Breaking Bad, I kind of wanted to see Walter in jail. Walter pitting the various prison gangs against one another would have been cool. Because he definitely would not have gotten into the white supremacist one because he killed a bunch of those guys in the series. So he would have been forced to use his wits and align himself with someone. And that could have been interesting. But, it's kind of a different kind of show. It would have turned into sort of an Oz. And they kind of already did that. And I don't think it would have been as good as Breaking Bad. And I don't see how you could up the ante unless Walter White comes back to take down all the Mexican cartels, And really, I think that would be a different kind of movie. So I think this is a fine topper for Breaking Bad. It was not overdone, but not underdone. Just right, satisfying. We get to see the characters one more time. Hollywood, don't F this up, okay? Don't bring this back. It's good just the way it is. If you got the CD collection or DVD or Blu-ray, whatever we're up to, and you got the collection, this would be a fine topper to that. You got all the Breaking Bad, all the Better Call Saul. El Camino is your topper, and yeah, that's perfectly fine. So thank you, Breaking Bad guys. Good job.